let's talk about from chronological order about what went down in 2020, starting off with something that pretty much every one of us around here have casted at some point, whether it be throughout the entire season or at last minute notice somewhere halfway along the line like me, and that is the inaugural season of the Grand League. So yeah, in the regular season of the Grand League, we saw Papou emerging in first place with 289 points, but it was really Carl Jr. who was the man to beat. He won, I think he won pretty much all of the steps that he entered in, 4 out of 4. And unfortunately for him, he cannot really attend to steps 5 and 6. Once because of an internet connection, if I recall correctly, and the other one because of a planned vacation, and he couldn't actually be doing SBC on time. How do you guys actually reflect on that very first season of the Grand League, as well as the playoffs that happened in Lyon with Carl Jr. Finishing the business that was undone last season and taking the title finally?
Well, I mean, coming into Season 1, there was a lot of questions that had been asked coming out of the beta season as to if things were going to change, if things were going to be updated or anything like that, and how some different people would perform. And now that they'd got the opportunity to have a full season under their belt, people like Massa, and of course a lot of new people coming into the TMGL kind of scene, so to speak, with Marston, of course, Matt, and players like that, how they would cope in such an environment. So it was definitely an interesting competition to stay invested in from start to finish. I mean, there was a lot of issues and a lot of complicated questions, like, you know, of course, Marston having his connection issues. But overall, I think the tournament went very well. It was very interesting to watch. It certainly kept me and Eirik entertained when we were there casting it. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I can't say that I disliked the tournament. I mean, I'm sure maybe some things we might end up talking about the actual the LAN event finals for it. But I think overall, the group stage went about as well as you could expect.
Yeah, if you just look at the group stage and how the results played out there, the 2 players I want to highlight, or maybe 3 actually, and that's the top 3 from the group stage: Papou, Riolo, and Aurel. Papou, of course, being well at the beta season as well, but Riolo didn't have too high expectations. Maybe he would be in the top 8, then he ended up placing 2nd there. Aurel placing 3rd, so that's also something good. But then if you look at people that might be forgotten now that he's so far away, that were a disappointment, you have the Pack, who didn't even qualify to the playoff. You have Bren, who didn't qualify to the playoff. Both were in the grand final of the beta season, so that's some surprising part on a negative side. And once you get into the playoffs, well, Carl Jr., of course, showing once again that he's the best player in the game. But the guy who then surprised me the most, and maybe I'm the happiest about, is Scrappy. He finally proved that he can perform at the biggest event in the game, and Trackmania Grand League is certainly the biggest event so far, placing 2nd there. So some key points there for myself. What about you, Geek? What is your biggest takeaway?
Well, I do actually join you on the Scrappy bit, because that's actually a bit of an interesting conundrum, because he was actually signed with Existence for the very first 2 steps of the season, and then parted ways with the Spanish organization. And as soon as he parted ways with the organization, just like that, the results had gotten better for him, allowing him to get in Lyon. Yeah, a really solid run by the Belgian player to get the runner-up spot in the end at that Grand League season. For me, of course, I'm gonna be signing a little bit biased, but yeah, I was especially sad for Tween and what happened to him in his final run in the lower bracket. It looked like it was looking so good, and that he had the place on stage in his hands, and unfortunately, a small error judgment before the final jump on Mini XXL. Remember it like it was yesterday, and that was a full stop pick on the CP that allowed Aurel to actually get a triple finalist moment. And yeah, in the end, Riolu prevailed in the final round, and yeah, that was the end of that. Kind of sad. But overall, it was really a nice competition to cast. It was my very first those were my very first big casts on the stadium scene, and to be fair, I really had an enjoyable time. And yeah, this connects to something else that has been happening in the parallel to the Grand League. It's been the Open Grand League, which is pretty much open to everyone, and where we saw basically Gwen securing himself a spot in the top 8, but not what we would expect. He was dominating the rankings up until step number 5, where he lost all of his points in the first lap on Zeppelin, on the Identity, on the very first Zeppelin jump, and yeah, he fell in 3rd place, but that allowed Afi and Yannick's the two Swiss drivers top out the top 8 and actually get into the Combine. And Combine was definitely interesting. Of course, we saw Gwen coming out on top on everything, winning 3 out of 4 phases, absolutely insane. And Afi also emerging in second place with a really nice shot, with actually securing himself a spot in the next Grand League season. What were your points on actually seeing the young guns take on the big boys of the competitive scene?
Well, I mean, going into the Combine itself, it was extremely interesting, especially because of some of the faces who were in the Combine who you might not have expected. I mean, your players from years gone past through Tech, and also exactly as Eirik was saying, from having such strong performances in the beta season, you had people like Pac, you had people like Carl Jr. Not Carl Jr. Sorry, Pac and Bren. Pardon me. Yeah, I got the two Solary ones mixed up there. But yeah, you had really big names down in the Combine. You had Massa down there as well, which was very interesting to see how, because the questions were being asked about players like Hafi, players like say Volnera, Yannick, Gwen, about how they would perform, because they'd performed so well in the Combine, but how they would actually perform against the real top level kind of multi-style players and things like that. And I think they did get the chance against some top level multi-style players. I mean, I don't think Pac and such were down there as a result of them not playing well, but yeah, I mean, it was certainly interesting to see how they coped with their issues, so to speak, and how they eventually overcame. And now Gwen and Afi are confirmed as part of the Grand League, and it looks like we have lost Eirik.
Yeah, we've lost Eirik, and he's popped in your spot, so that's great. I'm gonna have to redo that.
Get used to this. Get used to this.
Get used to this. This is the very first run. A little bit off sync, 20 millisecond more delay. Eirik is okay with sync. Thing is, I don't really have a per partaker source. We don't have your image yet, Eirik, by the way. So we're just gonna have to wait for your camera to come back on. I'm just gonna clap. Okay, Scottie is back on, and yeah, we're back with all the same place. I didn't have to change anything. Great. So yeah, we had Scottie's point of view. Did you have anything that you could potentially tell about the Combine, Eirik?
Of course. When you look at how they ended up with Gwen winning it, from the moment we had the announcement of the 16 players from the official Trackmania Grand League, Gwen was the player I missed the most seeing there. I don't even understand why he wasn't in. In the end, I was explained by Softy that he was too young, so he just had to perform well in the Open Grand League, and he would eventually be in when he's 16. He will turn 16 before the season 2 starts, so that's not going to be a problem anymore. But the player that surprised me the most in a positive way is Afi and Yannick. Happy to see both of them now getting in. Yannick recently announced that even though he didn't get top 2, he will still get a slot. So that's good, because those 3 players were a level above the rest in the Open Grand League. And then once you look at because not forget that 2 of the players in the Trackmania Grand League will not be in the Trackmania Grand League anymore, and Coco and Rolling getting knocked out there. A little bit disappointment to see that, thinking about when Rolling even qualified to the playoff stage for the beta season, Coco being a good player by himself, but yeah, some players have to get knocked out when other players are coming in, and I already believe I have a bet with Scottie. I think Gwen will be top 3 in season 2 of Trackmania.
Oh yeah,
that's not too far of a stretch to actually believe that Gwen will be in the top 3. And of course, I mean, it always kind of pains me when we lose. It pains me as a fellow Frenchman, to actually lose one of the contenders from the Grand League in that spot. But yeah, in this case, it's more of like a like renewal of talent. I mean, we might lose Coco, who is a really great player. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, he's not French champion for nothing. But yeah, seeing Gwen, the reigning French champion, by the way, actually come in and have a shot at actually performing on the premier esports stage on the Trackmania scene, I feel like it's gonna be really interesting to follow the progress of that young man. And yeah, that was overall a really nice overview of what could be lying ahead in terms of the competitive scene for Trackmania. Another event that we're going to be covering briefly, and where you can actually chip in, is the From Zero to Hero tournament. After the cancellation of Gamers Assembly to the COVID-19, Moss and his team were promptly contacted to actually host an online tech tournament reviving the From Zero to Hero moniker, and yeah, we had a over €2,000 prize pool, 2,051. We had a stacked player field with players from the scene such as Carl Jr., Pack, Tween, established players playing. We've got Bergie also as well coming back to play the solo tech tournament. We had Novice, who also is in there. Yeah, also our player turned caster midway through the competition, Scottie, was there to actually give it a shot. And yeah, also we got to witness a brand new dynamic trio, so to speak, with Kappa, who unfortunately was not able to attend due to wrist injuries. But we also saw, like, yeah, that was a really nice turnout overall. And yeah, I wanted to your guys' thoughts on that, since you guys, I feel you guys, I mean, we covered around the same amount of competition, but I feel like you have more of a better insight in terms of how you maybe have a better positive outcome on this one than I do. I mean, it's not that I view the event negatively, it's just more, I feel like you can give more depth than me on there.
Well, I mean, me having been both a player and later, although a little bit unplanned, a caster in it, it was certainly a unique situation that the event hosters were put in, and they definitely stepped up to the level of quality which we know that admin team is capable of. I mean, we had spectacular quality in maps. It was very well organized. And of course, everything went smoothly as far as I would see from start to finish. But I mean, the real point there is what you were mentioning there, Geek, was just simply what really made this tournament for me was the depth of the field. The depth of quality from start to finish was mind-blowing. You had almost every player who was worth playing, so to speak, that you could get, so counting out the likes of, you know, Karyan, Frostbill and things like that, who's well, at least who are around nowadays, pardon me, with the exception of Frostbill, but you had pretty much everyone you could have wanted to be part of this, from the top straight down to the mid pack. I mean, I remember going up to this tournament even wondering who would even be top 64, top 70, never mind when you're typically going into these events thinking that maybe 32 or 16 of the top placings are the ones who are actually going to be contested. So I think the event went really well. The final stages were fantastic. They had great storylines with the likes of Novus making a charge through, with some players falling down a little bit earlier than they might have been expected. Some players, would they do well, would they not do well? And even coming into it, I mean, would names like Javi Flyer show up, or how trained would people like Zach be, who've not been in the scene for years? So a very interesting event, and had a lot of hype going into it, and I believe it lived up to every bit of it personally.
If you just look at the, I believe this is the biggest tech event in the history of the game, and so many people coming back to celebrate the end of the game. I just hope that this doesn't be like you saw already. I believe Omnipod coming back to play this, and then once this event is over, he said that he's gonna leave Trackmania for good. Okay, it's okay to actually celebrate that. Okay, was supposed to be the last event, but I don't really understand why people see this as their last event in their career, because now we have a new game coming out. Now we maybe have new chances, but that's, I guess, another topic when we speak about the new Trackmania game. If you look at the top three, those are 3 of the 4 finalists from the last really big tech competition in Trackmania, the Trackmania World Championship. Only missing Kappa, who joined me and Scottie for the cast. Really pleasure to be joined by him there. But this something to bring up and something to remember is that Pack hadn't had a good 2020. He didn't perform well at Trackmania Grand League.
Yeah.
Didn't even reach the playoff. Now he comes back and wins this tournament. He beats Carl Jr., he beats Tween, and then also a positive surprise to see Novice stepping up, being in the grand final, and actually being somewhat competitive against these players. I didn't believe that he would have a chance, but in the end, he had at least somewhat of a chance.
Yeah, that's actually my main takeout from the tournament. One of my main takeouts from the tournament as well. The great rebound from Pack to actually come back from a poor start to his 2020 Trackmania campaign, so to speak, after failing to qualify for the playoffs of the Grand League and take the From Zero to Hero title. But also Novice, who actually, it was on Siphon Blur, who popped some insane times. I mean, I was casting with Necro at the grand final in French, and when he actually dropped the sub 102s in the middle of the grand final, we were going crazy. I was almost bouncing on my chair with excitement with what we just witnessed. And yeah, he actually gave a good amount of spectacle. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what that young Czech gun is able to actually bring to the table in terms of skill. Maybe an opponent and rival to Kappa in the making? Maybe not.
But that's a real question though, because now you see Novice maybe having a breakthrough performance, but he's having a breakthrough performance at a style that the likes of Kappa, the likes of Pac, Carl Jr. and Twin is prioritizing less because Trackmania Grand League is the biggest tournament. So how do you think that this is actually going to be the last tech event, or do you think that eventually we'll see more potential big tech events that even brings the likes of Carl Jr. back to the tech scene?
That is
certainly hope not.
that is
Yeah.
of course we hope that this we hope not. I mean, I'm also hoping I'd also hope not with the other styles as well. I mean, if we're all moving to multi-style, then we kind of lose the variety that really makes Trackmania great and unique in its own way. The fact that you have different play styles to cater to different kind of people, and also different competitions, and to actually show people who can be the best in a set style. If we all move to multi-style, then that's pretty much the end of the game, closed out. But other than that, yeah, I feel like I got 2 more events to cover that I'm going to cover really briefly here, and after that we're going to move on to the next topic. So for this, I'm going to bring the clip seed, and we're going to be talking about the biggest team competition that has been happening throughout the beginning of the year. It is the Trackmania Masters Team Cup 2020. Now, here, it was pretty much 2 teams sticking out at the end of group stage. At the end of the group stage, it was Group A with Team Elite going full 8-0, and the other team to have done that is Team Numalops, who have gone full 8-0 and have actually beaten Elementaries 7 to I can't really remember. I think it was 2-1 already in the group stage. I don't really have the scores in my head. I'm really sorry about that. And that was, funny fact is, that was Elementary's only loss in the group stage. That was against Numalops. And Numalops headed into the champions bracket along with Elementaries, and they faced off in the winner bracket final, with Numalops ending up losing that fight, so that was pretty much dead even for both teams, and they would have to face THE in the lower bracket final. THE didn't really manage to make a fight back for actually preventing Numalops from getting into the grand final. They lost something like 21-6 or 21-7 in the round count. They won a clean 3-0 for Numalops, and yeah, they went back to the grand final to face off for one third and final time Elementaries, and in the end it was the Numalops squad led by Harney, comprised of Zykos, Solia, Mathix and the like, that actually went on to overcome a 5-point deficit, since Elementaries had 5 rounds given to them since they came off the winner bracket, and they came back to and Numalops came back from that to take the series 3-1 with 27-21 in terms of round 27-20 or 21 in terms of round score, as you see the grand final being played on the background, to actually claim the title of Team Cup 2020 champion, thus capping a really successful campaign for the former Team Venture team, because the squad was picked up midway through the TMM Team Cup to actually become Numalops, and yeah, I feel like we're going to be seeing some more great things from the Venture lineup. And finally, last but not least, we had a we had a really nice event coming up last weekend, and it was the Full Speed League Glitch Edition. Very much the same case as From Zero to Hero, as a replacement for GA, although with a bit of a lower player base, 32 players selected on the qualifier basis, and that was actually my very first Full Speed cast from beginning to end, and that weekend was just phenomenal with the level of play of the players that were actually engaged. We had Mudda, who was actually taking part. We had Kid on his last competition on Trackmania before taking a retreat from competitive Trackmania to focus on his studies. It was absolutely beautiful to see. We also had Darkbringer, who was actually in there, and yeah, the standing of the playing was insane, especially in the winner bracket final. We just had Mudda dropping a new Daddy 1 on I think it was Bykit, who he dropped a 42.1, which was the only 42.1 on that stage circuit, so truly a mad lad. And in the end, it was a tense battle between Kid and Mudda, but in the end it was Mudda, the Australian Penguin, who prevailed to take the title of Full Speed League Glitch Edition champion. He took to Twitter to say that it was a bit of a bittersweet victory. He would have preferred winning in Poitiers and seeing a lot of people then winning online, but that's the way it goes with the world. You can't really predict what happens. Kid in the end secured a second place in his final competition, which is a safe way to actually, which is a pretty good final result before he head to retirement. Then TK completed the podium with third place. Darkbringer unfortunately was not able to challenge Aurora Racing's player from Latvia, who's now an American resident, to take third place. Darkbringer will have to be content with fourth position.